welcome back to the channel. My name's Kevin, I'm a geek. You're watching Kevin the Geek, and today you're checking out my review of Torchwood Series 4, aka Miracle Day. This is probably going to be an easy one for me to be able to give you my review on now, because I've actually recorded this twice up to this point, but I've been having major microphone issues, and so I've had the footage, but I've had no audio. So hopefully this is going to be nicely condensed. I'll be able to take out a lot of the waffle and my initial musings. I think I've got a good grasp of this review. Now it's taken me so long to be able to do this. But if you are new to the channel, please subscribe, turn on notifications, smash the like button, and of course drop your comments down below, because this is November and I am celebrating the Doctor Who 60th anniversary, so I am doing various reviews, I'm doing various rankings, I'm doing various reactions, so you can check everything out, and all of my previous Doctor Who and Torchwood related content going back the last year, because I started this channel about a year ago on my birthday, which also happens to be the Doctor Who anniversary date, which is coming up in only a couple of days' time. So I will be reacting to the Doctor Who 60th anniversary specials. They will be my first Doctor Who reaction. So far we've done reactions to Class and the Sarah Jane Adventures and some of the other Doctor Who kind of special anniversaries. So you can check all those out amongst various other stuff on the channel. But like I said, we're here to review Miracle Day. And this is a show that I feel gets a bit of an unfair stick at times, but also some fair criticism. And that's how I conduct my reviews. I do things very fairly. I'm not going to criticise something if it doesn't deserve it. I'm not going to praise something if it doesn't deserve it. I'm going to be very fair with my thoughts and my feelings. And my overall feelings of this, it's a bit bloated. It definitely could have been maybe 2 episodes, 3 episodes shorter and condensed a lot of the stuff that happened. There was a lot of stuff that just either didn't need to be there at all or could have been said with a lot less words. So that's my biggest takeaway from that. But I will also say that they were very ambitious with taking a British show and trying to take it global. So they, of course, got in an American production company to sort of co-finance it. And, of course, it was set a lot in America, and you get additional American cast members. And this is my biggest issue with the show. I feel that it led itself down a path that it tried to pander a little bit too much to the American audience and kind of left the British audience behind a little bit. That's how I genuinely feel. I mean, there was this whole kind of little sequence in maybe the 3rd episode where Gwen was talking that she got certain items from a certain shop, and they felt the need that they had to kind of address the different words that would be used by you know, the 2 different sides of the pond, so to speak.
And food, everybody is panic buying, so I had to go to the petrol station, and all they had was crisps.
Oh, I think you mean gas station and chips. Crisps are called chips over here.
Thank you. Mistranslation.
Oh, and mobile is a cell phone, and by cash point, I think you mean ATM.
So it's little things like that that just bugged me, that just didn't need to be there, and it felt like it was just trying to do too much of a balancing act between the 2 different audience types. But the other thing was, I think, the amount of action, and particularly the style of action that was within this series. Like, don't get me wrong, Torchwood hasn't failed to deliver on the action front, and it's probably got more action-y as the series progressed. But it lost its kind of British charm to it and went a lot heavier on, dare I say, cliche American action sequences, which, I mean, don't get me wrong, I grew up watching a lot of kind of American series and American comedies, probably more so than British comedies, to be perfectly honest with you. So I'm used to seeing that kind of stuff, but when I have a British show that's a spin-off of a, you know, a mega famous British institution in a way, it just felt off. For me personally, you know, if you're American and you were watching this, you might feel very comfortable watching it, and you might feel, yeah, this is exactly what I'm used to seeing. But yeah, for me, it just felt a little bit off. Now, the characters in this were, again, a little bit mixed. You, of course, have your remaining two Torchwood team members in Jack and Gwen. You have Gwen's husband, Reese, who is in all of the episodes, but is reduced to, I would say, more of a side character than he's ever been before. And then you have the introduction of two additional members to the Torchwood team in Rex, who is a CIA kind of field operative, and Esther, who's more of like a data analyst kind of one. And these two characters feel very familiar for me because they feel very much like Owen and Tosh. Rex is very much the challenger to authority. He doesn't stick well by the rules, which for me is again a bit of a cliche of American movies and TV shows. It feels like you've always got to have someone that is constantly challenging. But with Esther, she was much more like Tosh. She wasn't initially as tech savvy and stuff as Toshiko was, but she kind of learned and grew in her field kind of role that she was forced to undertake. And she was very caring and sweet, and I really liked her as a character, which really annoyed me that they decided to kill her off at the end of the series. Sorry, spoiler alert, but hey, this series has been out for 12 years, so you know, if you're watching a review of this, I'd like to think that you've probably seen it by now, you know. Yeah, I was really annoyed that they killed her off because it felt like very much like Toshiko's death. It felt very needless. It didn't feel like there was a purpose to it other than to try and give you emotional stakes, which Toshiko's did because we'd spent 2 years with her. Whereas with Esther, we'd only been with her for 10 weeks, so, you know, with 10 different episodes. It didn't land as well as I think it should have done, realistically. But annoyingly, they did keep Rex around because as a character, he did annoy me at times. And as a character that should have survived, he felt like he had an arc, and that arc was completed. And with him sacrificing, you know, the blood and from the wound, everything to reset the miracle, I feel that that should have, you know, been his ending. It ultimately wasn't because they made the stupid decision to give him Jack's immortality and literally exactly the same, and that was just ridiculous in my personal opinion. But hey, again, you may disagree with that, and I'm happy if you disagree with me because we can have these debates. But I think they added something, but not as much as I would have really hoped or maybe expected from them as characters. There was one particular character though who did add a lot. He added a lot of complexity to this, and it was the character of Oswald Danes, played by America's sweetheart Bill Pullman. And the reason it was so complex is because he is a man on death row. And you see it right at the start of the series, which is a great way of setting up the premise of the show, which I should probably, you know, just briefly speak about. The premise of this show being that on a random day, everybody is no longer able to die is intriguing. It's especially more intriguing when you add in the fact that they still get injured and they still get hurt. And you know, with some injuries, with enough time, they will eventually heal. With others, they are just left in a sort of limbo state of consciousness. And it shows it throughout this that Oswald, he gets the lethal injection at the start of this series, and he survives it. You have Rex gets impaled through the heart with massive poles of metal, and he survives. And his wound is slowly healing throughout the series. But then you'll have another, like the guy who sets a bomb off, is wearing like a C4 vest, and you later see him in the morgue, and his body is basically destroyed, and it's all charred, and he can still see, and you can hear rasping noises, which in a way, if I'm being super analytical, in theory he shouldn't be able to, because I think his vocal cords were destroyed, so in theory he shouldn't have been able to make a noise. But that's me being very pedantic there, I'm not going to lie. You know, they actually remove his head. You know, they get bolt cutters and basically cut off all the remaining connections of bone and cartilage and whatever's remaining, and yet he can still open his eyes, so he still has consciousness. You have that woman who gets crushed by the car in one of the episodes. Again, you like her single eye remains. So even though her entire body is completely destroyed, she is able to clearly have some sort of conscious vision and thought, which is an intriguing premise, but it doesn't quite deliver where I would have liked it to. And I'll come back to that in just a moment. Going back to Oswald Danes, the reason he's so complex is because he gets the lethal injection because he is a convicted child molester, a paedophile, and child murderer. He killed a young girl who was, I think they said like he was a teacher. I think she was like his student, which makes it even worse, to be perfectly honest. And this is a character that should be so detestable you should absolutely hate. But I think it's through clever writing, in addition to Bill Pullman's brilliant acting, that you are left conflicted as a viewer. You don't know how you should be feeling towards him. You should feel utterly contempt towards this character. Yet there are scenes and there are moments that you think, oh, that's interesting. And then you have other scenes that you're like, okay, no, I stand by my original viewpoint. He is a horrible person. So you're in this constant backwards and forwards with this character, and ultimately, I feel that they made the very correct decision to make him unredeemable by the end. You know, his final moments show just he is too far gone. He is not in a position where you can redeem him.
Oh, soon I'll see her.
You won't see anybody. You're going to hell, Dane.
But that's where they go. All the bad little girls. They run straight to hell, and I'm following.
And I think as the writers and quite possibly with the legal team, you know, that there was a reason behind that. You know, you couldn't allow a character with this kind of history really be shown to be in a positive light in reality. And Bill Pullman said it himself.
I don't know how it's going to end, but I have a feeling that the lawyers have determined that I'm going to be gone.
Now, if I go back to the premise of this show, where no one dies, I have to compare it a little bit to Children of Earth. Because for me, the stuff in Children of Earth that was the best was not necessarily the Torchwood stuff. It was not necessarily the alien stuff. It was, in reality, the stuff that made you question morals and ethics. Particularly, I think it was from the 4th episode when you had the alien demands that they wanted to hand over 10% of all the population, you know, the children population of the planet. You know, you have this government firstly trying to you know, haggle with the aliens. Then they go, okay, we can't haggle with them. We have to give them exactly what they want. How do we, you know, select these children? And how do we disguise the fact? And how do we, as a government, save face? That was all really intriguing. In Miracle Day, I don't feel that they delved enough into that stuff that I personally would have found the most intriguing. And they tried to do it a little bit in the early stages and midway through, but by the end it just became this kind of action slogfest. The fact that no one could die, it raised some really interesting questions. Like you have one scene where the doctor brings a police officer over and talks about, you know, this man who had tried to kill his girlfriend.
This woman's husband strangled her. She doesn't die, so he keeps strangling her. And now her brain is soup and her hyoid bone, her neck is like dust. And you're telling me that's not murder?
You've charged him with assault.
No, that's not enough. This is what murder looks like now.
Don't blame me. We're not even allowed to say attempted murder anymore because murder is impossible.
That is the kind of moral question that should have been able to be questioned much, much more. You could think it as an audience, but they didn't really go enough into it in there. Then you have all these medical panels where they're talking about how, you know, you can treat injuries and you can treat like infections and things, but eventually, because these germs and things are still going to be around, you know, because the human body, even though it's kind of technically arrived, it's going to be this sort of incubator for germs and bacteria and things. So eventually you're going to get these diseases and these organisms of illness that ultimately become drug resistant. And so the very thing that is saving humanity and medical care, you're going to lose that edge that you have over these diseases. And so it's going to be harder to treat people because you don't know how long this is going to go on for. Add in with the fact that the whole population issue is going to be an issue, as well as the resources, because they talk about how, I think it's on average, you're going to gain effectively about 500,000 more people per day, because you've got about 300-ish thousand or so people that probably should have died that are now going to be still alive. And then you're going to get all those extra births that you get worldwide daily. So you're going to have to feed them. You're going to have to provide water. I mean, in theory, you don't actually have to feed and water them, because ultimately, if you can't die, you know, I mean, you know, your body's going to attack itself, and so maybe your body will wear away quicker than had it, had it been able to have its food and water. So again, you've got all these different questions which are ethically and morally so important to the story, but I just feel it didn't go hard enough on it. The closest one that they did was with the idea of what do you do with prisoners who should be dead and who should be convicted, and those people who want to die, but or rather who should die, but they're left in this sort of constant state of kind of unconsciousness in some aspects. Like you see it with Gwen's father. He suffers heart attacks, which, given time, he should be able to recover from. But then he suffers more, and it kind of wears his body down, and he gets to that point where he should be dead. So the world's solution to that is these overflow camps, where you basically get put into the categories of life, and you're either normal, you've got an injury that you're going to recover from, or you are effectively dead. And for those who are effectively dead, they decide you're basically going to cremate them. You're going to put these in these furnaces. And again, they do some element of a job in trying to address that, and how morally and ethically that it's wrong, but they don't go the whole hog, in my opinion. The antagonists of this, the three families, they're just sort of in the background for a lot of this, and you just see a few of their operatives kind of cropping up, and most of them are just bland. They don't really give you that much to it. So again, where the focus really should have been, it wasn't. And where the focus was, it didn't deliver for me personally. I don't really think there's much more I can really add to this now. I'm like I said, this is my third time of doing this, and my initial time of doing it was probably about an hour long. I've managed to condense a lot of it down to probably closer to 20 minutes now. So that's a massive improvement on my part. And that is, I think, the biggest takeaway from this. It's definitely a show and a series that, if they'd cut the right stuff out and focus on the right stuff, it would have, for me, really rivaled Children of Earth as a series. As it is, if I had to order these 4 series of Torchwood, I would typically go with Children of Earth Series 3 as number 1. I'd probably then go with Series 2, and then I would go Miracle Day, and then Series 1. That's how I would rank them as an overall series, to say. But what are your thoughts? Please make sure you drop your comments down below. Let me know your thoughts. Remember to subscribe and turn on notifications if you haven't done so already. And make sure you join me for all the rest of my Doctor Who and kind of Whoniverse related content that is throughout this month. That's been over the past year. There's various playlists on the channels where you can check it all out. But for today, my name's Kevin. I am a geek. and you've been watching Kevin the Geek. Goodbye.